Yeah, I know. It's quarter till 12 or quarter to 1 or 6 in the afternoon or 6 in the morning. I have no idea where you all are at. But where I'm at, it's a quarter to 1, somewhere around there. 15 minutes till 1. It's been one of those nights. But how about something a little esoteric? People talk about religious translations, they talk about this and that and the other. And it doesn't matter where you come from. You could be coming from Hindu, Buddhist, Christian. The orientation's not the same. Origination, the originations aren't necessarily 100% the same. But the idea is so similar. I joke because I took comparative religion and religious philosophy, and the one thing that it did is it taught me never to walk into one of those buildings. Right? It's not that it's not that I don't know that there is the beyond, the beyond, or the great creator, the great father, which is a kind of a, it was never father or mother, all right? Um, that's a warpage that came down later after being overrun by people with ideologies that they created themselves, just like the book they created themselves from older books. And then they edited it was theirs so that they claim it. People talk about the Amalek all the time, and I'm going to say it one more time. The Amalek are from the kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Judah is on the slave coast of Africa until they changed the maps in the 1800s. So, if you want to know where the kingdom of Judah really was, slave coast of Africa. Just north of there was Gog, the kingdom, and its capital, Magog. And I'll say it again, Jerusalem is still under the Kalahari Desert where it was left, destroyed. Okay? Don't take my word for it. I've got a short video up there. I've got a short video on YouTube that shows you the maps. I don't ask anybody to believe me. I'll show you. I've got a short video, and maybe I'll link it in here. But you can find it easy enough. It's in my podcast update playlist. It's also in my shorts videos. Just look, you'll see the map. Pull it up. How big of a lie can they tell you? A really big one. Do you know that Africa used to be Ethiopia? Why was it Ethiopia? Because the Ethiopians literally controlled 2/3 of the continent. The only thing they didn't control was the outside western edge, the desert that already existed because of drying, the extreme north part where you find Saudi Arabia today, and Egypt, and the southern top, the southern Cape, and the outside area where you see Somaliland or Somalia, that area, and then the 12 kingdoms that ran around the inside of the Cape. Through the slave coast, there were 12 kingdoms there. One of them was the kingdom of Judah. Anyway, the rest of it was Ethiopia, and or Ethiopia, and the southern Atlantic was called Mar de Ethiopia. That's how prominent they were at the time. But anyway, the video's there. It's in my shorts. And it shows you the maps. You don't have to take my word for it. I never ask people to believe or disbelieve me. But what is desire, right? Desire is a purely physical thing. You desire to be wanted. You desire to have money. You desire to be loved. You desire whatever, right? There are people who desire fame. Look what they've traded to get it. People who desire to be wealthy. Look what they traded to get it. People who desired to be professional athletes. Look what they traded to get it. Desire is a physical, external thing. All right. It's desires are all about meeting physical needs, right? Probably the only exception to that is the emotional needs. Well, I want to be loved. Okay. Um, it's really hard to be loved when you don't love yourself. Um, the fact that somebody desires it so much makes them undesirable. They're so addicted to the idea that they can't grasp the concept. And we find a lot of people this way. They're so enamored with an idea or an ideal self that they can't find what it is they're looking for. It's that song, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It's because you're looking in the wrong place. I hear people all the time saying, well, I want to find my other half, the half that fulfills me. Well, if you're not fulfilled, there is no person around who is going to fulfill you. These lies that they sell in the dramatic TV shows and the old soap operas and the new soap opera. I mean, really good example. You want to talk about a high budget, high dollar soap opera? I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's vampire and werewolf movie. Daggone it. Any other day, I'd be able to tell you what the heck the name of it was. Anyway, y'all probably are laughing at me. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll think of it eventually. But anyway, I mean, that is a super high budget special effects soap opera. All about finding your other half. Well, if you got to look for your other half, you better start in here and in here, not out there somewhere. Because if you're not complete, not a damn person in the world is going to complete you. Maybe that's the single worst lie told. I've heard it my whole life, I'm looking for somebody to complete me. I'm looking for my other half. I'm looking for somebody to fulfill my life. Well, you know what? If you can't do it yourself, you're never going to find somebody to do it for you. And it goes back to what I said. If you're not in control of your life and in control of yourself, by God, somebody else will be. Look at that shiny forehead again tonight. Usually I got my hair down to my glasses. And I got plenty of hair to do it. It's just I brushed it back today, and that's better. Now I'm not blinding y'all with my shiny, burnt, scarred forehead. But anyway, I look more like my rock and roll self. It's only part of my hair keep cut. It's right across the eyes, just to the eyeglasses. But anyway, desire. It's physical. It's all about this physical realm. If you've not seen The Matrix, the guy says, well, I know the steak's not real, but I like the way it tastes. It's probably the best single example I can give you of why desires are just here, right? I hear people say, oh, I desire to go back to be with my God. Well, you know what? Have at it. Seriously. I'm not interested. Now, I don't know how many times I have to say it. If it walked here in this place, that's not a God. And some of them are pretty brutal, Go kill everybody over there on that side of the hill because they won't kiss my toes, basically. Well, if it's that narcissistic and such an egomaniac, it's nothing I want to be around. Right? Just saying. So desire, perfectly physical. Desire is something of this realm. Cigarette, coffee, which I left inside, daggone it. This is going to get long without a sip of coffee. But anyway, it's strictly about this realm. I want a better house. I want a better house. I want a woman or a man that'll do this and that and the other. I want shoes. I want this. I want that. I want this. I want that. I need this. I need that. Well, you know what? I talked about needs versus wants a long time ago. What do you need? You need shelter, water, food, and companionship. Companionship could be a bird, could be a dog, could be a cat. It's nice when it's another person. But Could be a horse. Just saying. I've got a friend, the only companion he has is a couple of horses, and he's quite happy with it. Well, hello, Angel. Anyway, I've got a friend, he's got a couple of horses, and that's all he needs. And I wasn't expecting anybody to join me tonight. I was just putting this up so it'll be up when people find it. But nice to see you. Um, so desire is a physical thing. It's all about this realm. It's the Matrix movie. You know, how many people wanted to stay in there because they could have their steak and they could have their drinks and they could have sex and whatever else. And I'm not saying that physical contact and sex is a bad thing. Heck, I'd be the last one to tell you that. But it's the way that you approach it, not what it is. You know, if sex or food or drinking or companionship is a demand, then it's not good for you. If it's an overwhelming thing to you, then it's not good for you. If it's just part of your life and part of how you do things, then that's great, right? Somebody says, well, you desire to sing music. Yeah, well, I do. But I don't desire it to get rich. I don't desire it to be noticed. I don't desire it for fame. It's just something that I want to do. It is part of all the other things that I do in my life. It is not something that I am so driven to do that I don't do anything else. Now, I do have to confess that when I am writing music, I'm off in my own space. So I don't do that. It's the same thing when I was writing books. I go off into my own space. So I don't do it when I need to be present for other things. See? Or other people. There's a compromise in that, see? So it's not overwhelming you. Now let's talk about ignorance, all right? Ignorance, in the sense of esoteric teachings, ignorance is thinking that you're bound to this place, all right? Because if you die, your ignorance will bind you to this place and you'll come back. Why? Because, oh, well, I have to be here for my family. I've got to be here for this. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. That is a whole different kind of ignorance. And I'm talking about esoteric here. A lot of it's related to death, what happens after you die. But ignorance is a way of binding you, both physically while you're here and metaphysically when you leave. They use your controlled, indoctrinated, educated belief systems, things that have been put upon you to bind you. So if you die and you're leaving, the first thing that's probably going to happen, you know, like somebody like me, they would put a harem of gorgeous people and say, hey, look, you know, I would not fail that test. Because even as much as I enjoy it, and as much as I would enjoy the window shopping, it's not a drive. It's not a prison for me. The physical contact's nice, but it's not something that I would be bound with. And maybe that has a lot to do with this whole subject, is what binds you. But ignorance, a weapon used to bind people. You know, there's a lot of people who do not have any clue what Project Mockingbird was, or the Mockingbird media, the church trials. There are a lot of people who do not realize that as far back as the 1960s and early 70s, it has been proven that the media is a paid propaganda organization. And then in the 2000s, when they realized that they couldn't get by with just doing this, they put their people on the payroll. I mean, you know, you cannot find a news agency that has 3 letters that doesn't have paid people from their intelligence services. Like here in the United States, we have the CIA working at Fox, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC. It's just the way it is. The BBC has MI6 people. Um, CBC, Canadian Intelligence Services, CIS. Um, it's just a fact. You know, the advantage I have is I'm old enough and I've researched enough that I know what the church hearings were about. I know about Project Mockingbird. Um, I know about Mockingbird Media. But I also know that since then we've had people like Anderson Cooper, for example, that we know that he was a CIA plant in the media. And when we pointed it out, all of a sudden he had to defend himself. Well, if it wasn't true, why would he have to defend himself? And why would he come out and say, well, yeah, I was contacted by him, but he was an unqualified waste of space and got a job because he was CIA. And there's a lot of them out there, you know, Mika Brzezinski. If you don't know who her dad was, her dad, Brzezinski, is the one that ran with Kissinger and Rockefeller. You think she is not a plant? Just saying. But ignorance, both in the physical, and you got to remember these apply both ways. This is the reason why it's esoteric. These apply both ways. These apply while you're alive and breathing inside this avatar, and they also apply after death. Now, the reason why I bring this up, maybe I ought to go backwards a little bit. The reason why I bring this up is because if you studied any Buddhist beliefs or Hindu beliefs, Egyptian beliefs, Gnostic systems, the archons is, for lack of a better word, some people call them daemon. But anyway, you have these tests that you have to pass, right? And what they always say is that they have the right to measure you, measure your worth. In the Egyptian teachings, you know, you got the feather, and if your heart weighs more than the feather, you get to go, and if it weighs less than the feather, then you have to come back here. First thing I got to say about that is nothing that you would encounter after death has the right to judge you. All right? And I don't know what to think about this. You know, I can't believe one way or the other because I don't know. All right? Everything that I've read says that you have to pass through these phases. Does that mean it's true? Not necessarily. But it could be. It might not be. But it could be. See, that's the problem. These are things that have been written by men and passed down. You know, and I automatically discount what comes out of the Middle East because we know that that is fake and it wasn't even in existence until after Constantine took over the Catholicism from Constantinople. I mean, none of this existed until then. Now, the writings existed from Sumerians and Babylonians and further back and what have you that they've been able to find. But, you know, who's to say? Who's to say? I am just presenting something that you can apply to your life now and something to remember when this life is done. Desire. If you're dead, what do you got to desire? You know, I'm just saying, what do you have to desire if you're, you know, because you know that you're not in your body anymore. I've been dead. I knew I wasn't in my body. And riding the lightning back and being fully aware of it was a trip. Wasn't my time to go yet, and I refused. Wasn't sent back, didn't see no bright lights, didn't see any of that crap. I just realized that I wasn't where I needed to be for a little while longer and crashed back in. It's all good. I got more lives than a cat, y'all. But anyway, so desire, that's physical, y'all. Once you're out of here, it shouldn't even be an issue. Now, does that mean, you know, they talk about, you know, trying to trick you? Oh, well, your family's waiting for you. Well, if you're dead, would your family look like your family? Just saying. Didn't mean you wouldn't recognize somebody energetically. But if they're dead, are they going to look like they did when you knew them here? Of course, then there's that ignorance trap. Well, you got to go back because you didn't finish something. Well, you know what? If I didn't finish it the last time, as messed up as things are now, am I going to finish it this time? I mean, let's think about this realistically. But ignorance is a belief that'll bind you. Um, it's like this Iran stuff. Let's use it for example. There are people out there right now that believe everything is being said, and that belief that they have been indoctrinated and programmed with has bound them to a set of circumstances. Same thing with the evangelicals here in the United States. They have bound themselves to something that is inherently untrue, created a massive belief system. Of course, it's cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars coming out of that little protectorate in order to manipulate this. But they've bound themselves to that belief, and now they can't let go of it. As much as they are horrified by what they're seeing, they still can't let go. Because if they did, it would break them. Because it proves that everything that they've been taught and everything that they've been preached to about has been a lie. Man, when you've lived a lie your whole life and all of a sudden you realize who the liars are, it's really hard to let go of it. Um, I did that song, I Refuse to Just Believe. I feel bad for people that do. But anyway, so belief is how you get bound, whether it be here physically or after your death. The beliefs. Oh well, you didn't finish what you needed to, and somebody's told you in your living life. Well, if you didn't finish it, you got to come back. You got work still to do. You need to fix whatever you didn't. Bull crap. All right. That is just to see if you are aware enough to allow them to ensnare you a second time based on beliefs that only apply here, and then you should throw them away anyway. But that's beside the point. Something else to think about is it allows you to be trapped thinking about the avatar that you occupy, rather than the light that's within you. I am not what you see. I'm using what you see, and I'm not complaining. I've had a double A ticket my whole life. Just saying. I've had a double A ticket my whole life. Better than any amusement park ride you'll ever have, and sometimes I treated it that way. But you cannot forget that this is not you. I always talk about way back in the day when I was doing the esoteric stuff, or from an initiate. I talked about the silver thread. There's a silver thread that connects you to what you really are, and it connects through your solar plexus, through your gut. All right. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have a crown chakra that connects you to everything else, and it doesn't mean that you don't have a root chakra that will help you ground and all the other things. I mean, there's an energy system here. We are literally a toroid, right? Out of the head, back through, out of the head, back through. That's your energy field. If you meditate, your energy field gets bigger, gets larger. Wow, I got no idea what that was. Sounded like a coyote. But anyway, I'm just saying, sounded like a coyote eating a chihuahua. Anyway, probably caught a squirrel is what that was. I was joking about the chihuahua, but anyway, the thing with me is the energy that you are is not the body that you occupy. And I don't know how many times and how many ways I can say it. Look at the Matrix. Look at Avatar the movie. I mean, if that is not a very good example, I don't know what to tell you. Look at the writings from Tahuti. I don't like to say Thoth. He talks about the avatar. It has to have an avatar to be here, right? Those who are awake watch over those who are asleep. We're the ones that are Rumi. Rumi says, when you awake from this dream, you'll find your grief and sorrows were for nothing. But you got to wake and realize that this is not what you are. This is not what we are. I call it a holographic humanarium because it's the easiest way for me to describe it in technology terms that people understand today. Which, if you haven't heard that podcast, it's out there. Just type in Raven Kiefer holographic humanarium. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 of them I've done talking about the details and how you can tell that this place is not what they want you to think it is. Um, I've talked about the frequencies of light, sound, and electromagnetics many, many times. But anyway, and then, all is illusion, all is Maya. It depends on where you look, but there's no one group of people that disagree that this place is fake. It's not where we're supposed to be. I mean, even Christianity, if you read their text, even though it's so warped and distorted, if you read their text, it says this is not where we're meant to be. We're meant to go on. What they fail to tell you is that you existed before you got here, and that really frustrates me the most. I mean, the most researched scholars in the apologetics for Christianity, I'll tell you, man, if there wasn't a problem with it, they wouldn't need apologizers, right? Refuse to acknowledge that you existed before you got here. Yet they'll embrace physics that says nothing that is energetic can be destroyed. It has to be changed. It can be compounded and slowed down like we are. There's an interesting paper that came out the other day that talks about light having been compressed so far below the actual speed of light that it creates the physical realm that we're in. Wasn't that what I said about frequencies? And the electromagnetic field holding everything together so it doesn't blow apart? Do you realize the human body has so much energy in it we could destroy the whole planet if one of us exploded? With all the energy that we contain. One of us could destroy this whole place if we could trigger all that energy at once that's contained within just one of our bodies. Think about that. That's how powerful we actually are. But we've been indoctrinated and controlled and psyoped and educated and into believing that we're just this. And we're not. So, ignorance. Part of the ignorance is not realizing that this is just temporary and what you walk around in. You've ever noticed that looking out through your eyes is like looking through a pair of binoculars? You can see everything, but there's always that little field. It's been that way my whole life. You're looking through windows at things. And you wouldn't see anything if it wasn't being processed in this weird cybernetic organic computer. And unfortunately, everything's been limited. So like all the things that we should be able to see, like that other 97% of the visual spectrum, everything that we should be able to hear, like the other 95% of the sounds, everything that we should be able to interact with electromagnetically, which is a spectrum even bigger than the other two, we're completely isolated from. Now, how did we do that? We're isolated from 95 to 97% of what exists. 95 to 97% of what exists we have been encapsulated away from and unable to interact with. Does that seem natural? It doesn't to me. But part of the ignorance is vast majority of people assume that this is what you are. This is all I'm ever going to be. So even in life, they live that way. And in death, they don't realize that being free of this avatar is who you really are. You're the light within. You're that light that connects through that silver thread. You're not this that's at the other end of the silver thread. And then you have darkness, desire, ignorance, the excitement of death. Oh my God, I'm dead. Wow. And then you have the kingdom of flesh, which is this. You have the wisdom of the flesh, which is nothing. Yo. For I have said, I don't know how many times in my from the initiate podcasts, that everything that I know is that one teeny tiny grain of sand that I can hold, just a single grain of sand from the whole of all the deserts and sand on the planet. I've just got one little grain. That is the amount of wisdom we have in the flesh. I mean, there are people who might have 2 grains, and there are people who have less than a grain. But if you took every bit of the sand on this planet, and I'm probably being optimistic by saying I've got 1 grain, okay? But you have to know, I don't remember who said it. Was it Confucius or is it a joke? A person who knows what they know and knows what they don't know is somebody who knows. I know what I don't know. I probably know, well, like I said, take all the sand on the whole planet and give me a grain, and I might have 1 grain of sand in here or connected to me. Now, if you want to talk about things that I know that aren't connected to this place, well, that's a whole different thing too. But even then, it's still wisdom of the flesh. I'm limited. I always talk about being inside the holographic humanarium is like being inside of a ant hotel, one of them glass ant colonies. When you're inside, you can't tell what's outside. That's the reason why we're so limited in what we can see and hear and interact with. Literally. 95 to 97% of everything that's around us we have no interaction with because we cannot see, hear, or feel it. But then you have the wisdom of the flesh that I was talking about. It's this. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. Maybe coming to the understanding that you're responsible for other people, learning what you know, maybe that is some actual wisdom. But that's not fleshly wisdom. That's energetic wisdom. That's the light within you saying, "Hey, look, my job is to show other people that they're the light that's within them, not this." Um, it's all about illusions. Everything that we interact with in life and what they say is post-death is about illusions. It's mocking what we are, right? What we really are, the light. And mocking us because we're willing to release ourselves of the physical nature that we are now, temporarily. Um, the illusions are everywhere. You know, one of the biggest illusions is that we die. We don't die. We just leave the avatar that we're occupying. Anybody who believes that death is the final step, I feel so sorry for. Anybody who believes that this life, coming into this avatar, whichever way you did it, um, coming through the blood, um, or like me riding the lightning, more than once. I've stuck with this body though the last couple of times, but you have to be free of your physical nature. You have to realize that even the physical nature that we have is an illusion. If it wasn't for the compression of the electromagnetic field, the compression of the light here, down to that band of 3%, and the compression of sound down to that 5%, we would not be physical. We would literally fly apart. But everything that they do here in the physical, and everything that I've read about passing through, whether you talk about the archons or the daemons that are not good daemon, they're always mocking us because we've been physical when they were cowards and wouldn't do it themselves. You think about that. What kind of a coward has to stand there and mock you for going through this when they didn't have the nerve or the compunction or the ability to do it themselves? The other thing that they don't have is they don't have our consciousness. They can't wake up to the fact that they are something more than what they are. That's universal across all the writings. Whereas we can wake up and realize that this is just temporary. We are attached to this in some artificial way, but it's not us. We're the light and the energy that's within it, are connected to it. They can't. realize that they are anything other than what they are, because they're artificial. You should feel bad for them, because they can never wake up to that understanding that they are not just what they appear to be, what they think themselves to be, what they have been conditioned to believe themselves to be. They could break free the same as us, but they do not have the conscious connection to that central light that is everything. And they're not orientated or originated from that central light. They're a step off. That's how they became corrupted. That's the reason why they try to keep us ensnared and trapped. I'm going by the writings, you all. So, the silence. How many of you could actually just stand silence? I'm talking about no rain, no running water, no leaves blowing, no wind, no birds, no nothing, just quiet. I've been in an isolation tank, and I loved it. No, you know, you're floating in water basically, but you are so isolated that there's nothing. I mean, there's no sound. There's no, the one that I was in, there was no way for electromagnetics to get in there, or radio frequency, you know, RFR. The one that I was in, nothing could get in there but me. Yeah, you ought to try it. I didn't do DMT or anything, y'all. I took a drink of coffee, smoked a cigarette, went in and put the gear on, got in the tank. They closed it up, and they said if I wanted out, there was a safety switch that I could push the button, right? And they decided after 45 minutes they ought to check on me because I hadn't moved. Silence was wonderful. Um, but the silence that I'm talking about is the silence of the spirit. And that may be the only time I've ever experienced it here. You know, maybe in meditation I get some of it. So, you know, I like to meditate. I stay in a meditative state most of the time anyway. I mean, every once in a while I let it slide, shame on me. I'm in an avatar, I can't help it. But I don't let the emotions drive the carriage, okay? I'm the driver. I let them energize, but I don't let them drive. But perhaps the only time I've ever experienced the silence of the spirit here without using anything would be inside that isolation tank. I can say that I did experience it when I went on my journey for 4 days after taking mushrooms, peyote. Yeah, I took peyote and I took way too much. I woke up with rope braid around this wrist attached to the old man on this side, and the rope braid around this wrist attached to the old man on this side. And when I jerked into my body, I was like, "Whoa!" And I'm like, "Why am I tired?" They didn't want me to. They said they wanted me to come back. They now you want to talk about amazing? They tied themselves to me and kept me. They kept water and goat's milk and whatever to get me to drink stuff while I was out of my body. They made my body do what it needed to. But they tied themselves to me to make sure I came back. That's dedication, and that's people who you could trust with your life and your death, right? But anyway, so you have this silence, and it's out there, out of your body. But it's the quiet of your spirit versus the noise of the physicality. You know, I'm sitting out here and I hear a coyote grabbing a squirrel or a bird at 1 o'clock in the morning. I got water running down the creek down yonder. I can hear it. I got a dog somewhere off yonder barking. I got rain dripping off the roof. There's no quiet here. You know, and I'm not adding to it by talking. But there's no such thing as silence of the spirit unless you're meditating in a place and you can get yourself into that space, right? Which you can. But what I'm talking about is complete silence where it's not necessary. It's just the light that you are in a space that's empty. Not really, but it'll seem that way. And you just are. there's a lot of talk about awakening, all right? And I don't know how long I'm going to go, but I'm just going to go until I get through all this. There's a lot of talk about awakening. Everybody needs to wake up. And then you have the inversion of that term, which are woke people. Don't you love the way that when people start reaching out and figuring out that they are something other than this avatar and they are awakening to what they could be and what they really are, all of a sudden they have to use the term woke for all these people who are so far from awakened that they are heinous and they suck the energy out of you from a mile away. They are not woke. They're broke. They're broken in ways that I don't even know how to help. You know, do like I do. Wish them favor. Nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing absent from their lives that are needed. It'll either kill them or it'll make them better. I mean, think about it. If they have nothing broken, nothing missing, nothing absent from their lives that are needed, they have no excuse to be the way they are. So give it to them. Favor. I wish you favor. Nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing absent from your lives that are needed. Good. You hear it? Good grief. This sounds like you know what? It could be a couple boar coons fighting. We got raccoons out here too. But they were up that way. And now they're over this way. So they've moved, one of them has moved, something has moved around me on the ridge and is attacking something over here. Wow. And I'm just sitting out here happy as can be. I know people wouldn't sit out here, man, in the dark. I'm not in the dark. I got lights pointing at me so y'all can see me. But anyway, awakening. There's a lot of, they talk about shadow work. And there's all these interpretations of what shadow work is. You know what? If you got skeletons in your closet, clean them up. All right? It's that simple. If you got skeletons in your closet, clean them up. I think my podcast over the last 4 or 5 years have been a way for me to clean the skeletons out of my closet. Just saying. I mean, I have told you folks in my podcasts and in my laugh podcasts, I have bared my soul, so to speak. I mean, it's a figurative term, but and I'd been working on stuff long before that. But if you want to awaken, part of it is they call it shadow work. I don't know why they call it. It's the dark stuff you've done in this avatar. Clean it up. You say you're sorry. Say you're sorry. You can't carry it around with you. It's like Ebenezer Scrooge with all them chains. Jacob Marley, technically, but what did Jacob say to Ebenezer? Your chain's so large, mine looks like a miniature in comparison. But it goes back to the beliefs that bind you, the ignorance. People will cling to the things that they did when they were 15 years old, like, oh my God, Well, you know what? If you did it when you were 15 and today you're 30, what? Clean it out of here, do what you can to make it right and go. There are things that I had done in my lifetime that I can't fix. I just can't. The person's either dead, the place is gone, circumstances are so wonky that there's no way for me to do it. I don't carry it around like a lump, camel's hump on my back. Yes, I know. Yes, it sucks. It was the choice that I made at the time based on the situation that I was in. I didn't put myself in that situation. This place did. Something else you need to think about. This place is designed to make you suffer, to make you feel anxiety, to make you feel guilt, and to make you dwell in it. As a matter of fact, the more you dwell in it, the better this place likes it. Do I have things that I should feel guilty about? I feel guilty enough about it. But I'm not going to carry it around with me and use it as an excuse or let it weight me down until I feel like I'm mashed into the ground. Just ain't happening. You know, I made decisions based on where I was at in this avatar at the time. Would I make a different decision today? Hell yeah, I would. How much older am I? 30 years? 35 years? You know, experience is that thing that you get right after you really needed it. But there's a lot of people who carry, you know, I hear people who are my age. I'm Gen X. I hear people my age who are blaming the way they are and the way they do things today on something that happened to them when they were 12, 13 years old. Or something they did when they were 13, 14, 15 years old. It's bullshit. I have every excuse you could think of to be just as hateful, nasty, mean, terrible, horrible, greedy as anybody else. It's just an excuse. As long as they have an excuse, they don't have to fix themselves. You think about that. Oh, well, you know, he did this and they did that, and you know, that's the reason why I'm the way I know. You're the way you are because you choose to be. I'd never make a good counselor, would I? Quit making excuses. You're the way you are because you choose to be, not because somebody made you that way. Boy, that would get me fired, wouldn't it? Just saying. But your dark spots, those closet skeletons that you keep hanging around with, dragging out every once in a while to wallow on, those are your fears and your anxieties. Those are what drives your fears and anxieties. It's that simple. You know, and it creates attachments, false beliefs, false systems, false identity of yourself, all because you won't let go of things. I am nothing, you all. My name is Raven. I do music. I do comedy. You know, I was a terrible dad the first go around. I mean, I was. I wasn't any good at being. I wasn't home. I spent the first 20 years of my daughter's life, literally, other than the first year, I spent the first 20 years of her life somewhere else other than a couple of months at a time. I'd be gone for 12 months, gone for 12 months, back for 3, gone for 18, back for 2, gone for 8 months, back for a month, gone for another 8 months. I wasn't a dad. She forgave me for it. And I did what I could when I was here. You know, that's the reason why that song that I sing, Baby Girl's Grown, is going to be in every live set that I do. Um, it helps me. But you just can't sit there and stew on it. You know, I made the decisions that I had to make at the time. And I'm not trying to justify shit to anybody. That's the other thing. You don't have to justify a damn thing to anyone. Well, why? What the hell you got the right to ask? Seriously. Was you there? No. Well, then what the hell's the business of yours? Ain't. Yeah. People get so caught up in having to explain themselves and having to justify something. And you know what? You don't. You did what you did. You experienced what you did because you were where you were at the time and it was what happened or what you chose to happen. Would you do it if you were in the exact same circumstances with the exact same experience and knowledge that you had when that happened? Would it have happened any differently? And I don't care if it was talking, I don't care if it was you were molested as a child, you got raped, you got beat up, you got stabbed, you got shot, you had a car accident. Me going overseas and dealing with viruses and weapons and stuff for 18 and a half years. Would you have done it any differently knowing what you knew then and the experience that you had? If the answer is no, I can't see me doing it any differently, then what do you have to be guilty about? Why are you letting that skeleton hang out in your closet? and stick its finger out at you when you go to get your clothes. You know, the world is a reflection of humanity. And a lot of people don't understand what I say when I say that. When you look at the world, the hurricanes, the blizzards, the thunderstorms, the floods, the earthquakes, the volcanoes erupting, the trees dying, the animals dying, the ground shaking, the pollution, it's a reflection of humanity, of the physical thing, the physical avatars and their belief systems and their ideologies. The more hateful and nasty and evil and divided that the population here gets, the holographic humanarian reflects it right back at you. And it doesn't matter that there's thousands of us, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. It doesn't matter that there's millions of us that want this to be a bright, shiny, happy place. We're outnumbered. That's the reason why it has to be reset on occasion. You know, it's better when it happens naturally than the manipulations they've done the last 3 or 4. You know, 1200, 1600, 1800. I think maybe an 800 too. Those were artificial. Don't get me wrong, there was cataclysms because of the way people were. But the reset itself was artificial. But, you know, the population today is nihilistic, murderous, unhealthy, uncaring, empty, dark-souled, dark-hearted. Look at the planet and what it's become. You find a place, there are places that you can find where the people who live there, the indigenous people who live there, aren't this way. They're happy, they're caring, they're giving, they're community. Um, and their lands look nothing like anywhere else in the world. Very good example is there's a tribe of people in Russia. Thank God even Stalin and Lenin knew better than to dick with them. But there are a group of people in Russia that most people don't know about. And they are very old, hearth people. Um, and as cold as it is there, and as different as it is there, and as hard as it is there, I mean, it would be a hard place to live. They have a community that still has the integrity, the emotional awareness, the community, the caring, the giving nature. And you know what their land does? The land that they live on does the same thing. They don't get 10 foot of snow in the winter where they can't move around, and they don't get flooded. They don't get thunderstorms and rainstorms so bad that you can't do anything. Their crops are still growing, and they have an abundance. It's because they have an abundance to give to each other. And, you know, I saw that somewhere, and I agree. You know, the earth, this holographic humanarium reflects back at the people in the avatars, what they put out. You know, misalignment, they talk about that with AI. Um, Human misalignment is when you're not engaged with what's natural. Um, you know, it's self-absorption, um, unnatural divisions. Oh, I hate them because their skin's black. I hate them because they're red. I hate that one because he's smart. I hate that one because he's stupid. I hate that one because he's a Democrat, and that one because he's a Republican. Her because she don't wear a cow, and her because she does wear a cow. All these artificial divisions were created for a reason. Um, Self-defeatism. That's a misalignment. You know, when you set yourself up to fail, you know, I've been a couple places where I set myself up to fail because I wanted them to fire me instead of quitting. I'm just saying, I had to get out of the place, but I didn't want to quit, so I let them fire me, and I did it on purpose. Um, unnatural hatreds, right? What's natural about hating a child that's never done anything in its life? It's still on a mother's breast, but we see it all over the planet. What is natural about hating a child that's out playing soccer? We see it all over the planet. What's natural about hating a child that's in school so much that you blow up the whole school and all the kids in it? That's misalignment. Oh, I got to brag. I have seen a video of a 6-year-old that I have been influencing singing uh, "Dream" by the Everly. All I have to do is dream by the Everly Brothers. Sang "Unforgettable" by Nat King Cole. Sang "Twilight Time" by the Platters. Sang "Dream Lover" by Bobby Darin. And sang "Everybody Loves Somebody Sometime" by Dean Martin. That's a 6-year-old, you all. I am having a positive influence. Anyway, there have always been those that would invent morality based on their own terms. Now, that's morality for everybody other than them, right? This is how you have to do things. And they create a belief system and an indoctrination system to get everybody to jump on board with it and control them. And then if that group over there won't submit, then they have to die, right? Um, Yet this little group that creates these moral boundaries and these ethical boundaries that are completely unethical and immoral for them, look what they do, right? Um, they act as a hydra. You know, get one head off, there's 10 more. They act as a hydra of evils, right? And they've shown themselves to the almost to the top of the top today. I mean, we've even got paperwork that shows the Rothschilds' involvement in this heinous, nasty, evil shit that's going on. I mean, from economic destruction of whole countries just to take their industry and property, to financing and intentionally starting wars. I mean, we've known this about the Rothschilds anyway. They admit way back in the, I think, 1800s, there's never been a war that my sons, or the mother was bragging, there's never been a war that my sons didn't finance and help start. Um, but today, wow, there's something out here by me now. I think I scared it because I moved that way. Yeah, please notice I couldn't see it or hear it. I got lights in my eyes, but I went that way, and when I did, I don't know if you heard it crashing down the hill. I don't know what it was. I don't care. I just knew it was there, and I couldn't even see it. But anyway, so we've got revelations, revelations all the way to the top of the top almost. I would say the top of the top tiers. So we got Rothschild involvement. Now we know, right? A lot of us knew this anyway, but it's exposed now. I would say that there's perhaps very few that command this uppermost level that we don't know about yet for sure. I mean, I could give you 13 family names. Go back and I did a Bloodlines podcast, and I named the families, but or the ones that were there. Now they could have people above them even, but we've gotten all the way. All the paperwork is out all the way to the Rothschilds. Now that's way up on the top of. I mean, we got the Rothschilds putting their fingers in Prince Charles's chest. Okay, we got the Rothschilds controlling Kissinger. We've known this, but now the paperwork's out there for everybody to see to prove it. So there's probably, like I said, that core group in the center that we don't know about yet. But I've named some of them in my Bloodlines podcast. So apocalypse. What's apocalypse mean? It means a revelation. And it seems to happen on the regular. And when they get found out, then we have a reset, right? These people who have been trained to believe that the apocalypse is this great war fiction that they've it's been created in the text, and then they've been indoctrinated. Billions of people have been indoctrinated to believe it. These people have been caught before many times, and they used wars to eliminate those who knew who they are. Just saying. They have used war and other methods to eliminate the people that knew who they were. Think about the asylums of the 1800s. Think about the workhouses in the 1600s. Think about the bloody wars in the 12 and 1400s. Think about the utter destruction that was reaped in Europe and around the Mediterranean in the 800s. Think about World War I and II. All that stuff that was destroyed. Think about all the libraries that have been burnt, starting with Alexandria and Constantinople and the one in India as soon as the British got there. Think about all the texts in China that have been now confiscated since the Rothschild banking system and the control system's gone in there. Think about all the libraries and the archive libraries in the United States and Europe that have burnt in the last 40 years. They're getting rid of the information. Think about all the books they've eliminated. Even the fiction books that referred to this stuff they've been trying to get rid of. And once they digitize it, it's done anyway. If you can't get a physical copy of it, you might as well just kiss it goodbye, because they can change it anytime they want. He who controls the past controls the future. But anyway, so they've been found out before, and they've resorted in total destruction. I mean, look at the nuclear bomb that was dropped on India. How many thousands of years ago? It's written right in the Upanishads and the Rig Vedas. Why? Because those people dared to stand up to them. But they've been caught before many times. They've used wars and other things, diseases, to eliminate the people who knew who they are. Right? I got thinking about something. Have you all read the conditions and the effects of the plague? It dawned on me tonight that I had seen this a few times. And I thought, boy, that's the weirdest daggone plague I've ever seen for just to be a virus, right? Hair falling out, teeth falling out, skin flaking off, nails breaking off. Basically rotten from the inside out, throwing up blood coming out the other end. Now think about this. The eyes turning gray, the skin getting ashen, blisters and boils. That's radiation poisoning, y'all. It's radiation poisoning. And interestingly enough, you don't have to take my word for it. You can look it up your daggone self. But there are a lot of reports during the plague where plagues were breaking out. There were people who were caught dumping gray powder into the water supply. Not unlike when they wanted to destroy Eastern Rome and poison the bread and the water and the wine. There's another reset for you. But anyway, the plague. Ashen skin, teeth falling out, hair falling out, skin flaking off, fingernails and toenails coming off. Dramatic weight loss, boils, blisters, blood, throwing up blood and blood out the other side. That is radiation poisoning. Anyway, any of you who choose to remain here, all right, if you choose to remain here past this reset, do not forget who they are. My people had stories. When they come back over here, they'll have white skin and they'll be selling you their knowledge, or they'll be selling you their lies, and they'll be teaching you their knowledge, their lies in place of your knowledge. And they'll control fire because that's the thing they like, fire, like black powder, fire, explosives. And they'll be telling you about a God that walked amongst them. That was the story we had here. And we knew they were coming. And the people at the time, with all those stories talking about how evil those people would be, still let them come, still let them take over, even though the stories were there. Cycles. It's do you want to ruin your well-being and your spiritual health in order to combat these people? I honestly don't think that's the case. If I survive this one, I will remember who they are. And I will teach every person that I know that killing them has nothing to do with your karma, your well-being, or your spiritual welfare. As a matter of fact, the more of them that you kill, the better off you are. The more spiritually enlightened the rest of your generations after will be. And they'll never have to worry about being imprisoned by false ideologies and lies when the knowledge is already here. I'm just saying. But anyway, if you choose to survive this round, remember who they are. And when you encounter them, do not let them survive again. Because they'll do this again, just like they have multiple times. And don't forget, and don't allow your young to forget, the next generations. Might be a few hundred years before they get built back up enough to do it another time. But you can't let it go. And unlike the generations that were here when they returned this time, don't give your generations 5 or 6, 7 or 8 generations out a second thought. Remember who they are. Remember how to identify them. And don't let them live when they come in contact. That's how they got by and got to where we're at today, as they were allowed to survive. And they've already proven themselves outright to not be forgivable, because they just keep doing the same things over and over again. If they wanted to change, they would have changed after the last reset that damn near destroyed the whole planet, wouldn't they have? Or the one before that, or the one before that, or the one before that. Or the one 6,000 years ago where barely 150,000 people survived. There would hardly have been any of them. And yet they chose to go right back to doing what they're doing now. That's what they are. Said they're not like us. Some were put here as prisoners. And they chose to make the prison hell for everybody else. Says something about us, though, right? Says something about everybody else. They knew that these people, these entities, were the ones who caused the problem for them, and still allowed them to come here too, because this is a safe haven for a lot of us. I say again, the Big Bang was what it was, but it has to go back to that point. Scott and I talk about this. Scott Severine and I talk about this a lot. There's that splitting of the path, but it always has to go back through the windows to where it started. It says the first will be last and the last will be first. So those who just arrived will go first, and those who have been here the longest will be the last ones to leave. Gotta make sure the door is held open for all the youngins that don't know what's going on. I don't know if any of this makes any sense to you all. No way for me to know if you understand it or don't. I said, don't believe or disbelieve me. If you say you're not sure, I'm okay with that. I'm not sure about that. All right, find out. I never said believe or disbelieve me, ever. I've mentioned it in my other one. I did that whole podcast about, somebody asked me, who do we believe? I said, nobody. Not even me. Know or don't know. And then there's things that I just know that I can't explain to you even if I wanted to. Right? This reset is not going to be like the others. Why? Because they've outed themselves. I said a long time ago that there are individual things here amongst us that had a chance. They've had more than one chance, but Some of them used the ones out front and hid. Well, this time they're not hidden. They've all been outed. And there are law enforcement officers amongst us. Just call it the Galactic Police Force, the spiritual police force. And they won't get by with it this time. I hope y'all had fun. I hope I've said something that was useful. Um, Raven Kiefer Laugh Podcast, Raven Kiefer Interviews, Raven Kiefer No Apologies Enough Said. It's those three are on almost all podcast repeater sites. I will tell you though, the No Apologies Enough Said podcasts, there are some of them that have controversial information in them, like the resets, the real resets, occulted history, that the platforms won't allow them to stay up because I actually point out documented facts about things that they don't want you all to know. I find it really interesting that they went after my occulted history one. The one where I talk about them taking the Egyptian artifacts from the West Coast down through Panama, across the railroad, and then over to Egypt, where we see them unloading them off of trucks and putting them together. Oh, well, we just relocated them. Oh, yeah, they relocated them, all right. Anyway, don't have to believe me or disbelieve me on that one. Find out for yourself. I came to you on the level. I was plumb with my words, and I leave you in the square. You are what you are, and I am what I am, and that is enough, whether you believe it or not. And Favour, nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing absent from your lives that are needed. Thanks to anybody who's joined me while I've been going, and I appreciate every last one of you checking me out. I did a lot of really interesting podcasts for y'all, and the comedy is just to make you laugh. Don't forget my music. Second live album will drop in March. The second album, or the album from the second live show. And it's the same cover. It just says live, and the round one is marked out, and it has a 2 over it. But that album will drop in March, and round 3 will drop in April. And hopefully by then I'll have at least one of the next 2 albums finished and ready to go. I haven't even had time to work on them. I mean, other than just kind of sorting out the lyrics and putting my little notes in there for the cadence on a couple of the songs. But I'm getting there. I got 10 albums out. You know how many people do 10 albums? Let alone the fact that I've been able to produce and get my buddies to do the instruments and all that and get them mastered and release 9 originals in a year. Of course, it's 30 years worth of music that's been rolling around in my head. So say, how do you do it so fast? Well, when you get a song that works, it's quick. The lyrics will come out. You'll write it in 10, 15 minutes. And then if you really got it sorted out, you can get a melody laid out for it in another 20, 25 minutes because it's already here. The long part is getting from a demo to the finished drum and all the other instruments from the friends of mine. That's the long part. But once I put it up and it goes out on the line, they can just grab it, like Terry or Bill or Jackson or Jesse. Those are the drummers that have been working with me. And Miranda with her synthesizer can do drums too that sound pretty good. A lot of times I'll use her synthesized drums, and then I'll put one of the other drummers' tracks over the top of it. But once I put it up there on the program, anybody who has time will grab it, and they'll lay down the actual instrumental track for it. And then once we have it all together, I track it, and I listen to it. And when I'm happy, when I know I'm happy with it, then I submit it. But every one of these albums, I've listened to the songs for like 2 weeks with nothing else, in order, in the album play order, nothing else, just those songs in the right order for a week to 2 weeks before I've released the album. That lets me make sure that I have it in the order that I want for album style. I'm an old guy. I like to do albums. And there's a play order for songs on an album that keeps it consistent and makes it run smoothly from one song to the next. That's the reason why Moving Through Shadows, the Dawn album, and Moving Through Shadows, the Dusk album, even though the lyrics are the same, the songs are so completely different that I actually had to change the play order in order to make them play congruently through. That's the whole point of that project, was to show that you could take the same lyrics, create two completely different emotional feels, two completely different connections, two completely different styles of album from the same lyrics. That was my experiment. We'll call that my project album. But anyway, I wish you all well. And somebody asked me about the Iran thing. Look, I thought they were going to go tonight, well, or whatever night, when Trump was running his mouth. But I don't see how they're going to avoid it. I could actually see that little British protectorate shooting something off or doing a false flag in order to force us to do something. Um, you know, people in the United States have woke up and realized that we've been sold out. And yeah, they like to say like 80% of people support that little British protectorate. No, we don't. It's about 80%, I think it's 84% of the population in the United States are furious because, well, of course, now you got to point out that that other 20% are the evangelical Zionists. That they've got a belief system that's so warped and has been so indoctrinated and so financially bought to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars that they have no clue about the genocide. They have no clue about the blatant murder. I mean, there were 340 people killed in one day, and some of them were just sniped in the head. So, I mean, there's a lot of people who have no idea that's still going on, and that's not including all the hundreds that are being killed up on the West Bank and in Lebanon. Um, it just blows my mind that they can claim to be for the good of mankind and loving and blah, 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 and they will not stand up and protest genocide because their belief system is so warped. They don't realize how many hundreds of millions of dollars were spent from the late 1800s and especially in the early 1900s to create the Protestant churches that you see in the United States today. They changed language, they changed what they taught, and then when they become a 503c, they actually can't say things. A lot of people don't realize it. When your church becomes a 503c, you are restricted from saying things. You know, that's the reason why religion and government were never supposed to be married. Oh well, I'm done, y'all. I hope you had fun, and I hope I helped some. I think one of the most important things that I even talked about was your beliefs bind you, both physically and spiritually. You become trapped, not realizing that this is not what you are. You're the light that's attached to this thing. A lot of people say you're the light within. Well, the light that you are is not in here. It's attached by a silver thread, for lack of a better word, and you kind of float around through. You know, that toroid that your body puts off is you. The body is just what it is. That's the reason why the body doesn't move the way that it's supposed to when that toroidal field gets crushed. When that toroidal field around your body gets crushed, you become sick. You become physically unable. It's because that is you. That energy field is you, not the avatar. There's a little esoteric for you. Appreciate y'all. Mahe.